Hi everyone, it's Robin, and today I'm here with Shirley Balman. So, if you all remember, Shirley used to co-host the podcast with me, and then last year she had an injury. So, she's back, and she's back here as a guest today to talk to us about her journey of healing over the last year after suffering a pretty severe concussion. So, Shirley, I want to say I'm so happy to see you. I'm happy you're back. I'm happy you're healthy. I'm healthy you're well. And you look wonderful. So, how are you?
I am wonderful. I feel amazing and I'm grateful. It's been a real journey. Golly, it'll be a year, April 28th. So we're just a little few months shy of a year. I still have some incidences that I have to work through, but it's nothing like what it was early on. So what happened was when my birthday is the 28th of April.
I was going to say, I didn't want to interrupt you. I was going to say that happened on your birthday, right?
Yes, yes. It
Happy
was the 28th of April, and I don't like the way this looks. I don't know. Um, and we celebrated my birthday a little bit on the 20, well, I guess it was the 25th or 26th. Um, and because my granddaughter is on the 24th and they wanted to have a party for her on that Sunday. And I said, no problem. I've had lots of parties. So, but it was in Lexington, Kentucky, and I live a little bit about 40 minutes outside of Lexington. So I said, I have some things I needed to return to the store in Lexington. So I said, why don't we drive in early? We'll go to the store. I'll just give these things back, get my money, and we'll go to the party. Seemed like a great idea. I've been at this store many, many times, and there's an incline where the store is. So the store starts down here, but to get to the door that you actually have to go through, it's up here, and we park just right in front of it. Well, that way. Anyway, long story short, I was not thinking and looking really where I was going. I knew the directions perfectly. And I put my foot up to get onto the curb, and the curb evidently wasn't there, or my foot tripped or something, and I went flat down. So, in that process, fortunately, the reflex that goes like this went up. So, when I hit the ground flat down, this part of my head hit right in here. So it broke this finger, it damaged this finger, but I didn't crack my skull open, which was a good thing. Anyway, I did pass out. I had a really, when you go back and you look at it, I passed out. At one point, I was really floating above me, looking down, and I could see me laying there. And eventually, I saw feet and people were coming growing out of the feet, and they were three men, and they were talking to me, and the next thing you know, I'm in my body and my eyes are open and I'm looking around, and I'm on the concrete. They went and got my husband out of the car because he wasn't facing the store, he was facing away from the store, and took me to the hospital. At the time they said I had a mild concussion and a broken finger, that I should go see an orthopedic surgeon, and one thing and another. So I did that. I didn't go to the birthday party. I was pretty sick. I Stomach wise, head wise, the whole nine yards. But I thought they said I would be, 2 or 3 days and it would be over and I would be fine. But it wasn't fine. It was far from fine. And evidently I hit really, really, really hard, and hard enough to break my finger, far enough to injure the middle finger, and hard enough for my brain to go swimming back and forth in my head. So, and I didn't realize, and you learn a lot from things like this.
I was going to ask you, not, I apologize for interrupting you, but
Please do.
could you explain a little bit because about a month after you had a concussion, I got a concussion. It was the craziest thing. And I don't think people realize the severity of something and the importance of getting checked because I didn't know I had a concussion. I'm just like, oh, I just got a bad bump on the head. I'm okay. I feel a little nauseous. Let me lay down. Right.
Mm, that's
I
right.
didn't go to the doctors for almost 2 weeks because you were on my behind about going and getting checked. And thank God I did because
Hmm.
mine as well was more serious than I originally thought it was. And it took me quite a while. So could you explain some of the symptoms so that I mean you're sharing your story and I love that you're sharing your story because it was a difficult journey for you. And there's
Yeah.
about what like almost a little less than 20 year, about 18-year age difference between us.
Hmm.
And, you know, sometimes we associate things with age, but when it comes to concussion,
It doesn't. It doesn't
really,
matter.
I don't want to say it doesn't come into play, but it comes into play maybe in a different way because it's more about how hard you hit, what part of the brain got injured, how quickly you heal, if there's something else going on in your body. So could you explain some of the symptoms you were having? Because I know what I went through.
Hmm. Well, I think first and foremost, I really needed to understand that, which I didn't, that the brain is, and maybe everybody knows this, but I never paid attention. It's there, you know. Um, the brain is in fluid. It floats. It is not attached. It basically floats in this fluid in your head. And when you hit like I hit, uh, your brain bounces back and hits the back of your head. Well, guess what? When it hits the back of your head, it goes forward again and hits the front of your head. Then it goes back again and hits the back of your head. So, one of the first things that happens usually after a concussion, is you were nauseous. I got in the car because they were going to call an ambulance, and Bob said, "No, we're not far from a hospital. I'll take her there." I got in the car and sat down, and then everything in me came out. So cautious, vomiting, nauseous, vomiting, those kinds of things are really an indicator that, yeah, there's something going on here. You took a pretty big hit. Not remembering also for me, when they asked me, did I pass out? My first response was no. And then about 2 or 3 days later, I had the memory of being above myself, looking down on myself and opening my eyes. And I thought, oh, I did pass out. I did black out. Um, so you have that. It is trauma. It is called a trauma. We hear concussion all the time. And then people said, well, you might not have good memory, blah, blah, this or that, but, probably it's your age. Well, I understand that because, yeah, as you get older, sometimes it takes longer to bring something up, but it doesn't mean, and that's one of the reasons why when you're older and you have a concussion, people don't take it as seriously because, well, you're always going to forget a little something, Shirley. Give it a break. But the reality is, when what I have found in this, and I still work at it, is if I don't work against that image, that information that I've been given, I won't be able to bring it up. Getting back to health is work. I'm not going to just lay in a bed and think it's going to heal and everything's going to be okay. One of the things that I lost was a good sense of balance. One of the other things that I lost was emotionally out of balance. About a week or so into it, I had a conversation with someone that is very dear to me on the phone, and she was talking about situation that we've been involved in together. And she was giving me all this information, and I was thinking, I'm not ready to deal with this yet. And normally I'm very balanced. I can easily handle situations that might, mess up somebody else's brain, but it wouldn't mess up mine or my emotions. And when I got off the phone with her, I started to cry. And I cried and I cried and I couldn't stop crying.
You're also someone who you're always you're you're the person I call service, right? You're always doing something, you're always volunteering, you're very active. And anyone who knows you knows there was nothing wrong with your brain
Right,
prior to um the concussion. And
right.
that's the point that I want to make is that I don't really appreciate when people say, oh, well, because you're a certain age, no matter what that age is, if it's 50 or 60 or 70 or 80 or whatever, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're mentally incompetent or you're mentally slow because you have always been sharp as a pin. You remember stuff that I can't remember
Yeah,
before my concussion. Like you've always been really
I
sharp,
am.
right?
I
And
am.
you're also somebody who never really said no. So I'm sure this was quite different,
It,
not
it,
only
it,
for you, but for others around you that were somewhat used to being dependent on you.
mhm. Well, I think the interesting thing is that when they tell you you'll be better in a week, 10 days, you tend to think that that's the case. And I had lots of dizziness, loss of balance. I kept on thinking it's going to go away. But that day that I had this conversation, I don't move into that place of despair. That's not me. I don't go to, I can't face this. I don't know what I'm doing. This energy that is like blowing my mind. And I can't stop crying. I finally went downstairs to my husband and I said, something is terribly wrong. I had this conversation and I can't stop crying. I am scared. And it did scare me. And it's unusual. I've been around long enough to work through things. Anyway, my daughter is a therapist and she has done a lot of work with a lot of modalities that deal with the brain. And so I gave her a call and, uh, and I am not the one that will usually say, I need help. I'm the one that everybody calls to get help. And, but I called her and I said, I need you. And she doesn't live here. She lives in another state. And she said, what's going on? She knew about the accident. She wasn't up here for it, but she knew about it. And she said, I'll be there. I have my last client at 11 today. I'll be there. She called back 20 minutes later and said, forget the client. She's good. I talked to her. I'm on my way. And she really helped a lot. We need people that can really explain to us what is going on. So back here in this part of your brain, my daughter calls it it's sort of like the alligator brain. It's the the brain that is
The
fight or flight
reptilian,
brain,
right? The reptilian
the
part. Right,
reptilian brain. It's the fight or flight brain.
exactly.
And where I hit was the frontal lobe, which is the decision maker, the can work things out part of your brain. So when this part of my brain said, you know what, this isn't working. I can't work with this. I can't figure it out. It's sort of like said, I'm done. And as soon as it said, I'm done, this reptilian brain decided to take over, shot forward with all of its energy, all of its emotions. And it just took over. That was a wonderful way for her when she got up here to really explain to me that these things are going to be happening. It's not going to be a one shot deal. And then she said, have you had an MRI? I said, no. And she said, well, MRIs can't say whether you have a concussion or not. We know you have a concussion. It can't even say how bad your concussion was. But you may want to consider why you fell. And I said, well, because I missed the step. She said, how do you know that? I, I don't know it. So, one of the things I'm going to tell people right off the bat, you must be proactive in your own health.
Oh yeah.
I went to see my doctor. It happened on a Sunday. I saw him on Monday afternoon. And it was like, this will pass. Don't worry. Don't watch a lot of television. Don't stay off of the phone and the computer. These things just create more stimulation in your brain. You don't need that. Drink plenty of fluids, and come and see me in a couple of weeks if it doesn't go away. That was what I got. It was not, I think need to see a neurologist. It was not, I think that, this is what's happening in your brain and this is what we can do to help you. It was just like, don't worry about it. You're fine. I'm like, okay. And I take that. I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. But the reality was, when my daughter came, it was like, no, we need to get an MRI. Mom, what if you had a stroke? What if you just had a mini stroke and you blacked out? And that's when you fell. So those things we eventually, it took us forever to get him to order an MRI. And we did get that done. But the reality was it was push. I had to literally push them to do it. You know, they did do it. I didn't have it. But what if I did? What if I did? I thought I knew why I fell, but maybe it could have been something else. So I want to encourage
Daughter,
people when something
daughter
like that.
was absolutely, I mean, I would have done the same thing. I would have told you the same thing, to be honest with you, that you should get checked. It doesn't matter what, because we don't know. Even
Well,
at even at my age, like, you know, you had made a comment a couple of times, like not long after the concussion when we spoke, um, because of your age, it might take you longer or whatever. And I'm going to say that's true to a point, but that doesn't isn't necessarily true all the time because when I went to the doctor and he was checking me out and I just won't I can't forget. I was sitting there and he was going with the light and he goes, "Look up." I said, "I can't." He goes, "You can't?" I go, "Not unless you want me to pass out on straight off of this table. I can't." And he goes, "Oh, no, oh no." And so he's looking in my ear, he looks in my ears and I'm like, "What do you see?" He goes, "The other side of the wall." I'm like, you're real funny. But he did yell at me. And I said, "Well, I'm only here because Shirley sent me." And he goes, who's Shirley? I go, "She's like my second mom." But I think it's important to stress throughout all of this that no matter what your age, because you could have a mini stroke.
Mhm.
I knew somebody like in their 40s that had a series of mini strokes and didn't know it until the big one came.
Exactly.
There are walking strokes, people that have mini strokes all the time that live every single day, walk around every day and don't even know it,
Exactly.
until like my grandfather went into the hospital with a massive stroke. We didn't know. And, they had said, well, he apparently had suffered several mini strokes. We didn't know.
Before that.
He
So,
seemed to be absolutely fine.
right.
So
Yeah.
I
And
think it's
and so
important.
it doesn't really matter. I mean, and we see this, we see it with children that are playing baseball, basketball, football especially. We see it with adults, and they go through it all the time and they get through it. The important thing for me to have had to realize was that number one, I really needed to slow down. And actually, which is really interesting, um, I couldn't not slow down. There was no way that I could resume the life I was living. And the life I was living, I'm a Reiki practitioner. I have Reiki clients. I am a certified life coach. I have coaching clients. I volunteer to work with women in recovery. So I mentor like 15, 20 women. I have 7 grandchildren, 2 great grandchildren, 4 kids and family, and a beautiful husband. Hate to put him last, but he demands the least of me, actually. So, I mean, that's why I guess I put him
Got
last.
the dogs. You have two dogs.
Oh, yes, and I have 2 dogs. And so I have a very active and fluid life. So, plus I like to write and I like to read and I like to meditate and I have other things that I like to do. And which was really interesting when this had happened, I had just gone through a process of unlayering some things and made the decision that I was going to be going to Silver Sneakers and just being one of the bozos on the bus, so to speak. I didn't know anything about Silver Sneakers. I didn't know anything about the kind of exercises they were doing. I was just going to follow someone else, which is nice for a change if you're the person that everybody always goes to. Okay. And so when this all happened, my life that I knew, my external life as I knew it, went completely to a halt, absolutely to a halt. And I must say, because this was 2 weeks after I'd started Silver Sneakers, and I really loved it. I had so much fun doing that. I laughed a lot. I loved not knowing what I was doing. I loved being, it just was fun. It was just fun. And I was really enjoying it.
Adventurous.
Yeah. I,
Sometimes we need to laugh at ourselves. And if you want to laugh at yourself, that is a
you know,
really good play. Like I finally qualified. And I actually love it. So
it's the greatest thing. And you're with other people that are anywhere from 55 to, I think there was one gal there that was like 87. And men and women, and we were just having a good time. And then my husband had bought me 6 weeks with a trainer to work at the gym because I wanted to get back to the gym after COVID. I had not been back at the gym. So all of this stuff was in motion for me, not for anybody else, but for me. So I've got to admit, I was pissed. Okay.
got a crossword. Oh my goodness.
I was not
Mark
a
this,
happy camper.
I have to mark this date down.
Mark that date down.
I could tell that Mercury and the Sun are square Uranus. You said a curse word.
Yeah, there you go. Anyway, I've been known to a couple of times. But
Mhm.
anyway, the I was really upset because I was finally just focusing on me, and then this happened. And what I realized in this last year, though, is I love the way, for me, the universe operates in my life. There's always 2 sides to every story. The one side is poor me, poor me, poor me. Oh my gosh, why did this happen to me? Blah, blah, blah. And believe me, I went there. I wasn't a happy camper about the whole
I'll go
thing,
there.
but then I have to, I don't like staying there. That is not a healthy place for this person to be. The other thing is trying to figure things out up here was not a good thing. If I didn't go down here and just kind of sit here, I could not really be comfortable in my own skin, not being the person I've been all these years. And so,
There's a little voice in the back of your head that likes to kick in and say, am I always going to be like this?
yeah.
Is this what my life is going to be now?
Mhm.
But I always tell people when that kicks in, then you know you're going to be okay. Because if you're not going to be okay, if your mind isn't processing, even though it's not processing maybe at the same speed or exactly the way it was, because it needs time to heal, if you have that thought, then you're on your way to recovery because otherwise you wouldn't even think to ask yourself that question. You
Well,
would just automatically accept it because you wouldn't have the capacity to know any better.
in the midst, it's difficult to let that idea drop down.
Yes.
Obviously we know that, but knowing it and really trusting it in that moment, in the midst of that feeling chaotic throughout your whole body, because nothing is the same. Nothing is the same. My daughter stayed up here for 10 days with me. I'm grateful. She's an amazing woman. I have three other children that actually live in this state, but she was the one that was available and she could do her work from here because she has a lot of clients that are on, virtual.
Yeah.
So for the clients that were on virtual, she could see them from here. But the reality is that your life is turned upside down. My life was turned upside down. Let's put it that way. And I really, I had to take the road that said, if this is the way you're going to be for the rest of your life, how do you want to live it? Do I want to live it miserable, or do I want to live it in peace with whatever is happening at the same time doing I can do to improve it? So the first part is accepting that perhaps it's going to be this way. The second part is, but what can I do to improve it? So what I found, I talk to a lot of people. I talk to massage therapists. I talk to people that do Reiki. I talk to people that do breath work. I talk to everyone that I could possibly think of. Uh, I have a friend that's a therapist. I've talked to her to say, okay, where do we go from here? Because the doctors were not forthcoming with what I should do. And again, thank goodness. I'm so happy and grateful that that's my nature at this point in my life, is not to sit back and think somebody else is going to do this for me. So, one of the massage therapists that I worked with before, who also was a Reiki practitioner, had a couple of sessions with her where we did sacral cranial work to help with balancing this. Also, I was informed that I needed to really, really buckle up with this.
Mhm.
Water, fluid, 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 fluid. The body during this time needed lots of fluid. There's another company that I know of, and I contacted her regarding anything that would help with that. So I increased, there's a product that they have that helps to increase the sodium in my body to help with this balancing act that I was in the process of doing. There was also a product that they have that helps with memory. So I mixed them in here and went on a regime of at least, these are 32 ounces. And so I did 64, minimum 64 ounces a day. You've got one too? Yeah. Hey, baby. 64 ounces a
Four
day.
cups of water, so I drink about 2 to 3 of these a day.
Mhm. So that was, that was another issue. What I also had a friend who I was sharing with, and she said, there is a friend of mine who was seeing someone for Meniere's disease, and it's a physical therapist. I said, really? I wonder if that person also works with concussions. Come to find out, now they're in Louisville. I wasn't going to travel to Louisville. Oh, by the way, I wasn't driving either.
That's too, yeah, you couldn't, I was going to say, I didn't drive for a couple of months, but everything's
Yeah,
close
yeah,
to,
I
yeah.
couldn't drive. So, make a long story short, she found out that there was a fellow that did the exact kind of work here in Richmond, Kentucky, which is like 15 minutes from me. And I started working, went in there, had the evaluation. They were wonderful. They knew exactly what was happening with me, what was going on with me. I had to do eye work where I would put a pencil here and see how close it got to me before it would break into two or stay as one. Um, Physical therapy, eye contact therapy, all kinds of therapy just to get myself back to a place where when I stood up, I didn't feel dizzy, I didn't get nauseous. Uh, and the nauseousness and the standing up and things like that lasted quite some time. Um,
And
I
there is
had a
no real time frame on the healing. I remember asking my doctor, and he said, I said, well, how long does it take to, for this to go away? He goes, as long as it takes. He said,
Exactly.
3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months. It could be 6 months. It could be a year. Um, I have little tiny, teeny residual things with reversing words.
Mhm.
But other than that, like I'm pretty good. I'm good now. But I'm actually so used to saying things backwards that and it's to me, it sounds like I'm
Like you're saying it correctly.
in my brain, I'm saying it correctly, but like sometimes I'll watch a replay. Like when I teach the astrology class, I told the girls from the very beginning, I said, tell me if I say something backwards. And none of them did,
But you heard it.
except for one, who she came into the class like a week or two after the other girls started because I think she was away. She was away or something like that. And anyway, she'd call me out, and I was glad that she did so that and I could correct it in my brain because when you're saying it, you think and I would be like, I know I said that right, and I go back and watch the video. I'm like, oh shit, like
And that's the important thing, and that's something else. If it helps anybody else, when you're trying to come up with a word. Now, how I see my brain, I know that everything that I have experienced in life is in there, and they're all in file cabinets. Okay. And so when I can't come up with a person's name, or I'm trying to describe something and I know what I want to say, but I can't get the word, um, I have I have to stop, pause, breathe, think of what I'm trying to say. I can't think of the word because the word's not coming yet, but I say to myself, what, all right, where would this thing fit? What file cabinet would it be in? All right, well, it might be in the file cabinet on cleaning the house, or it might be in the file cabinet on gardening, or it might be, okay, that's, and then people want to give me the word, all right? They want to throw words at me. And
they
I have
think
said
they're
to them,
helping. They think they're helping, but it
I
really,
know they do. And
yeah,
I have said to them, until I ask you for the word,
yeah.
please do not give it to me because my brain needs to work this out. It is not stuck. It isn't like gone forever.
No, it's not
It just
broken.
needs, it just needs to be rebooted. And the way that I am coming to this is the reboot. So I would take the time, and eventually people would understand and they would not try to jump in right away, though my husband is an exception to that rule. But I would just go like that to him and say, give me a minute. And 9 times out of 10, I can pull it up. I had a situation, even just last night before last. I woke up with an image of a person looking at me. And I knew this person. I loved this person. I haven't talked to this person in years. I've tried to contact her. We've lost contact with each other, but I couldn't think of her name. And then there's two other ladies that were friends with us in this little group. And I could think of this one's name and that one's name. But this is the one I was the closest to, the absolute closest to.
Interesting.
And I couldn't think of her name. And so one of the things that I am known to do is I said, because it was still in bed, it was still, early in the morning. I took a deep breath. I put one hand here, one hand here. I took a deep breath and I said, I am going to rest in this. I'm bringing this to you, part of my being. And I am sure eventually you're going to bring her name to me. And I just started breathing and I suddenly found myself kind of going into a sleep. And just as I was falling into a deeper sleep, the word Tara came up. And I said, no, 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 not Tara, it's Terry. And that was the person's name, was Teresa, Terry. So we have to work at this. We have to work against what is actually happening in our mind and in our body, not by beating ourselves or doing more than we can do, but we have to look at it and say, do I want to stay at this place? Because I know that we could, but I don't want to. And I don't have to because my body and my brain are still working. I just have to work with it, you know? And
When the brain heals, when the the neural pathways, right? Like they heal in different spaces in different times. So you might get halfway through a sentence and then all of a sudden it just you drop it,
of
right?
it. Hmm.
And then or you get through the sentence and you get to the last word and you can't remember the last word because there's no rhyme or reason to the way the brain heals. So
And
you have to
that's
have patience and oh my goodness, like what a lesson in patience. Having
absolutely.
your having patience with yourself, having patience with others, just patience overall.
And it's a real gift, we come from a world that tells us that, I mean,
Hurry up.
the words multitasking came into being during my adulting. Okay, as I became an adult, went into business and did all kinds of things. I mean, I didn't ever heard that when I was growing up. That wasn't anything that anybody talked about, but it really hit when I was probably in my early 40s, um,
Oh, I think once you have
something
kids,
like
you
that.
learn to multitask really quick.
Huh?
Once you have
What?
children, you learn to multitask very quickly.
We don't use that terminology. We didn't use the terminology. Well,
Uh,
maybe you did because you're
I,
younger
I
than me.
did. Yeah, I did.
But
But
we didn't use multitasking. We just did it.
yeah.
When you start using the language multitasking, it even puts more pressure on you to do that. It's like acceptable. So if I'm working, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm answering phones, I'm making contacts, I'm writing things out, I'm putting together programs, I'm doing all of this stuff all at the same time because, all right, I'm waiting for a phone call over here, so I'm going to be doing this over there. And your body is in constant, your brain is in constant moving from one thing to another. Your body is moving from one thing to another. And it's the pace that you get yourself used to. And for me, I was one of those people that really jumped into that.
Yeah, and it becomes a natural flow for you.
Absolutely.
So then
Yes,
this interrupted your entire natural flow.
absolutely.
The
And
flow,
one of the,
there was no go in your flow. I
there
know.
was no go in my flow.
It,
Yeah, that's
it's
right.
like some like the beavers came in and built a dam overnight, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And we had a lot of other things going on this year in the year that it's amazing the stuff that went on. I we had a unfortunately we were in July we went to Missouri because we had a trial that we had to attend because we were supporting our granddaughter who had been brutally attacked by someone, and it took 2 years to get that trial. Well, that trial came up while I'm in this
That is over
recovery.
for your that
Yeah,
part of it's over for your family.
yes, I'm very grateful for that. But we were in Missouri for 4 days, going through that trial, and the thing about it that I found so fascinating was because of where I had been April, May, and June in this whole process of slowing down, getting out of my head, moving further into my heart and into my being. Although the hardest part of that whole trip for me, as far as the concussion was concerned, was the travel with cars moving constantly and things like that, because it was it's a 9 hour trip. Um,
Did car rides trigger the nausea for you, or was it like more like dizziness? Like for me, I would feel like especially like if you're on an expressway or what do you call it here, like the loop or something like
Yeah.
that. The just the cars going by would make me dizzy.
The movements,
If it
yes.
was fast, any fast movement would
Yeah,
my brain couldn't process the fast
right.
movement the same
And
way.
that's why I wasn't driving,
Yeah, mine didn't
because
last like as long as yours, but yeah. So I
so
can't even imagine what it must have been like for you because I know what it was like, but it was like for
yeah.
me. Like
Well, it was something once again, and normally we would, maybe take that trip and put in the 9 hours and going up and back. It was a 2-day trip because I
yeah.
could not deal with the
And people will
any
think
more than that amount of time in with
yeah,
this could not deal with it. But the other side of that coin was that throughout this whole process, it has softened my heart. It has opened me up to much more deeply depending on the essence of God's spirit, whatever you want to call it, within me, and finding more strength there than I mean, and I've always been for years and years someone who has been, well, with Reiki and everything else, tapping, etc., connected in that area, but it pushed me into a deeper understanding and a deeper knowing of that power, which I'm very grateful for because for a while there, I had difficulty. I was angry. There was a lot of anger involved in what this person had done. And I hadn't seen him since, the whole incident. And when he was finally the jury came back with their decision, which he was found guilty. Um, Throughout the whole thing, I didn't feel any anger. I didn't have that kind of energy wasn't flowing through me. I was feeling a lot of compassion for my granddaughter and my daughter, and I was there to support them a lot. But when when they brought back the first degree, you know, and sentenced him, my I had compassion for him. I had compassion for a person that could be that sick and have to do the things he did. And it wasn't a brain thing because my head would have said to me, "What are you out of your mind?" It was a heart thing. It was a beautiful experience to have compassion for someone, still want him to be in jail, still want him to be in prison for the amount of time he's supposed to be. But there was not a sense of, yes, you bad that. There wasn't that.
You've never been that kind of person anyway. I would be shocked. I would be shocked if your reaction was the opposite. Then I would say, okay, something's really off with your brain because you're not that kind of person to begin with. Some people are. Some
I
people
and
enjoy
I
that
under
satisfaction.
Yeah.
You've never been someone who thrives on someone else's despair.
No, but normally I would have had to think about that. I would have had to think about, do I really want to be angry at this person? Do I really? I didn't have to think. There was nothing up here to think with. There was nothing up here to think with. It came from a place that is not my brain. It was just an emotion. It was a feeling. It was coming from here.
You know, oh, what's it? Jesus, I can't remember his name right now. Um, it's like one of my favorite people on the planet too.
Greg Brady.
Greg Braden talks
Yes.
about the heart being the actual
Brain.
primary brain of the body,
Yes.
and that they have found cells in the heart. So I do believe that the heart kicks in and fills in the gaps.
Absolutely. And it was a beautiful gift for me because I could be more stable, more balanced. I could be more compassionate for my daughter, my granddaughter, uh, not more, but I mean, just more present because I was not in that other place. So that was one of the other things that, that happened during this time. Also, we found out, gosh, well, they had the big storm in North Carolina, where my daughter lives, and they had just moved. There were so many things that were happening.
You
And
had a major full year over this last
ab-
year. I
absolutely,
mean, I I am always in awe of how much you do even after the concussion. Like you were hard to keep up with before the concussion. And I've always said that, Shirley, you need to rest. Take some time for yourself. Oh, I'm resting. I'm resting. I'm like, no, you're not. You need to rest. And I'm never grateful that someone gets hurt ever. But
that's the positive side.
the blessing in all of this
Mhm.
was I remember saying this to myself. And I think at one point I said it to you after I knew you were starting to get better to where you were able to handle it. And I remember saying, I told you to slow down. And when you don't slow down, the universe is going to make you slow down.
Absolutely. And I know that very well.
And
That's why I say it was a blessing.
the self-care, the self-love, the the radical self-acceptance. I was writing as you were talking, the patience, the understanding, and the grief. All of those things are also, they're part of the healing process. But when your brain isn't able to process, and you talked about the heart kicking in and how they work together,
Hmm.
you can't tell me there isn't magic in that.
Oh no, there is magic in it. Believe me, there is magic.
And some people won't get that. And then I actually wrote this down. I put a little chuckle because here I am talking to you about your brain injury, and I'm trying to think of Greg Braden's name. And your injury was more severe than me. You're 18 years older than me, and I needed your help to think of my favorite person's name.
Because he's one of those people that I adore also. No, I
Oh, I,
adore.
I
He
absolutely love him.
he speaks to me because
Yes. He just wrote a new book too. I can't, matter of fact, I just ordered it. He's
it's part of it's a what?
I said he just wrote a new book.
Yeah.
He's just absolutely, he's an amazing human being, and your energy is very similar to his.
When you know, and that's what's so important. But one of the things that I've found now, it's 8, 9, 10 months in, is I like my new lifestyle.
But I'm glad. I'm glad
I
you,
love it. I absolutely, I really, it has put me so much more in touch with my body than I have ever been. And I'm pretty good about being in touch, but it's a depth, it's deeper now than it has been. While I was ill, I wasn't ill. While I was recovering, I was reading Ram Dass's book, Still Here. And Ram Dass said in that book, because he was such a spiritual person, he didn't pay much attention to his body. He didn't need to. And he often looked at his guru, who, just didn't seem to have much use for his body either. Just kind of, I mean, he did, but he didn't, it wasn't like high on the agenda. And he said once he had the stroke, it gave him that pause to really, he had to ask for help. I mean, he had to ask for help for everything, dressing, going to the bathroom, everything. And he had to listen to his body, listen to what he was capable of doing and not capable of doing. And he had to face the idea of death, and he had to face the idea of not being the person that he did before. And he brought up many instances where he pushed himself too far. And I that was one of my books that I used during this time to kind of acquaint myself more with perhaps on a spiritual level, but also on a physical level. And to be able to, I have usually two, at least if I'm going to do something like today, I'm having this with you. Um, and I have a 4 o'clock appointment that I have with a client. And I have a book study that I'm in, uh, which
So glad you slowed down.
will be at 7. No, it's three things. That's three things today. I have a book study at 7:15 with a group of women that I absolutely adore and love. It's nothing that I'm doing that's not enjoyable. I would be watching TV at 7:15. So instead, I'm doing this book study, and they're from all over the country, these women. So it's really kind of cool. So I'm doing a book study with them. And it's been going on for a long time. And I have a 4 o'clock client, and I have this. Now, for me, this is luxury. I love it. And in the meantime, I will sit upstairs in my sanctuary, and I will read and write and rest and not think about what I'm going to do tomorrow, but just what I am and where I am today and where I'm present. Um,
So when we think about all this, you had said something about um I forget what word you used, and I wrote down in tune. So whatever word you said, I'm thinking to myself, so you're talking about connecting with the body, and it's kind of like, I think you said in touch. I don't remember what word you used. And what popped into my brain right away was in tune. And I thought of a piano.
mhm,
Think about how the chords are connected to the keys, right?
mhm,
The piano sometimes gets out of tune. So when you have a concussion and you think of your brain being out of tune, you need to retune it.
mhm.
And when you retune it, it may not be the same exact frequency. But what's really, really interesting is, even though it's not the exact, say, tune,
Yeah.
it could be a higher frequency.
It is a much higher frequency. Yes.
There's a higher level of understanding, and especially in the way you process and in connection. Because when I was thinking about that, what popped into my head was, and I don't remember who wrote it. It was one of the Buddhist books that Ben had laying around, and I was reading it. And they talked about the Tibetan monks. And if I'm not mistaken, Greg Braden talked about this too, about how they can sit in the Alps, in the Andes, and with just their little wrap on, barefoot, and go into such a deep meditation that they don't feel the cold.
Hmm.
And, you know, your body is there. But what all of this experience teaches us is that we really are not our body.
No, we're not. Nope.
So for anyone that doesn't have faith, and what I want to say is dig deeper.
There's always a matter of unlayering and unlayering and unlayering. I think our journey here is all about doing just that. It's all about unlayering belief systems that not only we have had, but our ancestors have had, that we have inherited through them, whether it's genetic or it's just things that our families have said over eons and eons, and we have no idea where it began. But it doesn't fit anymore. It doesn't work anymore. It is not what we are. I used to wonder who I was, and now I don't, because I know what I am. And I know that that essence of this universal love, whatever you want to call it, resides in me. So my whole purpose in being here is to connect deeper and deeper and deeper with that so that that can be expressed out into the world because that's our purpose in being here is to emulate what God is, and God is love. God is all, and we are all, and we're all connected. So even if there are people that I don't particularly care for their personality is not what they are. That's the who they made. But the what is always the same.
Well, I always say we always have a choice whether we think we do or not, right?
Okay.
So when we're born, the only thing we're born knowing is love.
Mhm.
Anything after that is a learned behavior. We learn to talk, we learn to walk. Brooke and I had a conversation yesterday. I did interviewed her and we were talking about a similar type of thing. And I said, all of that is all learned behavior.
Absolutely.
But
Think
we
about
choose, and when people think they don't have a choice, yes, you do.
this. But I think we need guidance to how do I come to that? How do I get unlayered? I can't just do that on my own. I need people, in my life, like you, like others that I have worked with over the years, and so we go through this unlayering process, and that's why I said, this has been an absolutely amazing year for me. Um, and because I was planning on slowing down before all this happened, the universe didn't make this happen. But the universe said, well, while we're doing this, let's really get in touch. Let's really do this. Let's really sink down deep inside. Why not? I was talking to someone this morning, one of the ladies that I mentor, and we kind of got into this conversation as well. And she said, well, it's just second nature. I said, that's exactly right. Anything that is not love is second nature. If you say this person, oh, it's second nature for that person to be loving and caring, and no, that's first nature. It's not second nature. Second nature, well, it's second nature to, be a big bully. He's always been that way, blah, blah, blah. Oh, yes, that's learned behavior that I own, that I say, but this is me. This is me. I can't change. This is who I am. It may be who you made, but it's not who you are. It's not what you are.
It's not who you have to be, it's who you choose
No.
to be.
But you have to allow to unlayer that. And it takes time and it takes trust, you know.
Well,
Um,
we've had
but
this,
the more we can connect to people that are like minded in that area, the more support we get for owning that. Because you know what? Sometimes if you tell someone, yes, we are all the essence of God, it's like blasphemy. No, it's not. The Bible says we are made in the image and likeness of God. God is not a human being. What is God? God is love. So if I'm made in the same image and likeness of this love, this essence, one of the things that tapping did for me, and Reiki, the two things, tapping and Reiki first, was that I began to was able to feel the energy flow through my body. And tapping it at times when especially during this process, when I was having difficulty with my Reiki, I would do tapping and tapping the meridians that those energies flow through. And when you begin to focus, relax enough to feel that energy flowing through your body, you've got to know there's something so much more than the personality that's in front of you right now. Even if it's a personality that you don't particularly care for the personality, that's not what they are.
So how did you get through? Because in the beginning, it's difficult. When you were saying about, the why me, which anybody that knows you knows that's not you.
That's right.
Yeah. Like I like to compare it to like the grieving process. There's stages of grieving, there's stages of healing, right? I'm sure you had your grief stage, you had your angry stage, How did you get through those moments, those days?
I allowed myself to feel everything that I was feeling.
Yeah. I, I remember having a conversation with you early on. You couldn't really talk long on the phone, and it was just for a few minutes. And I remember you saying something, and I don't know if you remember this, but it was something like, I can't be like this. I just can't be like this. And and I said, you're not going to be like this forever. I don't know if you remember that.
I do.
And when I hung up the phone, knowing you the way I know you, it hurt my heart.
I'm
Not
sure.
knowing that, like within the couple days after that phone call, I'd be right next to you with a concussion. Um, and I thought, wow, didn't the universe come back around and bite me in the ass? And now I have to take my own advice, right? But
It is
I
it
do
is
want
a
to thank you because when I fell, had it not been for you kind of riding my behind, I probably should have went to the hospital right away. But, the dogs were puppies and I had broken glass all over and I was dizzy on the floor picking up glass. And then finally I just said, I can't do this. And I just shut the door and went into the main part of the house and kept the dogs in here. I just couldn't. I,
couldn't.
you know, all I
And
wanted to do was sleep.
it's scary. It is scary. And I'm not going to deny that it was scary. And I was afraid that it was going to be, will it be? And that's where acceptance comes in. The first thing, I mean, I know it's anger. I was angry because I had just said, I'm slowing down. I'm going to do this differently. I'm going to do things. I was doing a meditation at that time, and the meditation, because I hear things, because that's what I do. I get intuitive thoughts, but I actually hear words. And this voice said to me, are you enjoying life? And I'm like, of course I'm enjoying my life. My goodness. And I started doing my journaling from that question. And it's like, I love what I do with the women I mentor. I love what I do with Reiki. I love what I do with my clients. I love being around my husband and the things that we have in common and things we do together. Golly gee, I have this and that and the other. And I wrote this long list. And this little voice then came back up and said, I didn't ask if you were enjoying your life. I asked, are you enjoying life? And it caught me, and I thought, what? Yeah, are you enjoying breathing? Are you enjoying observing? Are you enjoying connection? Internal, everything internal. And that had brought me to, it was like if there was anything that would feed this internal just for you, what would it be? And that's when I made those decisions to do some of the other things. So that I definitely got angry when after making that decision and hearing that voice, I wasn't able to follow through with that. So, yes, there was anger. And then, there's bargaining.
Oh yeah.
you know well, maybe I need, if I could just do this, I'll do that. If I could just do this, I'll do that. And just show me what I need to do, and it just it's crazy,
We
crazy
always try to
making.
bargain, don't we? It must be human nature. Like the body says I can do this, and then you stand up and the brain goes, no, you can't.
No, you can't. No, you
And
can't.
then and then it's like, are you busy doing? or are
Yeah.
you busy being?
And you can be when you are busy doing, you can also be, but you can't do if you can just be, you may do things differently when you are doing. And
It's
that's what I am learning through this, you
that,
know?
that was something that I learned.
Mm-hmm.
And I, because I wrote that down. I was interesting how that came up.
And
Uh,
that shift takes place. And it's not difficult when that shift takes place because it feels right. It feels balanced.
it's kind of like when we think about something, think about like we want to do something. I'm like, oh, well, I'd like to do this. Or if someone asks you, would you like to? And your first instinct is to say yes, but then you stop and you think about it. You hesitate, right? Where when your natural instinct is to say yes or no, and that's how we find ourselves doing things that we may not want to do. And I say, listen to your body, listen to your instincts. You know, when I say know thyself, that includes your body. Because even though we are not our bodies, we have to be in tune with our bodies. And we have to listen to them because they tell us when we're not well sometimes.
Intuition, it, we need to have intuition.
We
And
do.
that,
We don't
and,
always know how to use it. We don't
and
always
that,
trust it because it's
yeah,
unseen, right? We can't see it.
we can't see it. But so we practice listening and oftentimes listening to our bodies um, is the beginning of being intuitive. Um, and then as we become more in tune, as you used that words before, in tune with spirit, heart, mind, totality, we operate from a different place and we operate at continuing higher levels of frequencies so that we begin to see vision instead of eyes. Vision gives us a bigger picture, a more harmonious picture, whereas eyes only see
We're
what,
limited.
yes, very limited. Absolutely. And so through any process where anyone I think has been slammed back and told these are your limitations, I realized that I won't speak for others, I had to accept, as I said before, I had to accept limitations. But then in that acceptance, I don't have to use energy there anymore. Resistance is wasted energy. I didn't have the, it came to a point where I didn't have the energy to resist what was going on in my body anymore. And when I let go of the resistance of maybe it will be this way, I'm like, how the hell do I know? You know, then I had the energy to move forward in whatever was going to help me to heal not only the body, but the mind, the heart, the spirit. Everything was working in conjunction for me to raise up and have a whole new vision of my life. And it's my vision today is so much different than what it was a year ago this time. It's
This has been an interesting year. Well, the last couple of years have been interesting, but especially this last year. Well, I was going to say since COVID, the world has changed anyway. But it's been an interesting year to on many different levels. But you were talking about resistance. And we always say what we resist persists, right? And persisting is exhausting. And I found, you know, myself that I was never told that I couldn't do something. Like
Hmm.
even by my father, even being, my age, I'm probably at, I guess that I'm at the very end of the baby boomer, I'm considered a baby boomer. I didn't even know I was. I had to look it up. Um, so I think 63 was the last year of the baby boomers, which was when I was born. But my father always encouraged me. He instilled in me that I could still be whatever I wanted. Just because I was a girl wasn't a reason to not. Because remember, women weren't astronauts. Yeah, I was that in between, right?
Yes.
Where you could be the, have what I call the white picket fence syndrome.
Hmm.
And
Oh,
that
I knew that well.
and that's perfectly fine for some people. That's what they want. Or you could be the doctor or lawyer or astronaut, even though women weren't astronauts back then.
Or we could be both.
Or we could be both.
And that was the real trick.
Oh yeah, that's a juggling act. That's a full-time juggling. Like you should be like in Ringling Brothers Circus if you could juggle all of that and still come
Yes.
home and cook dinner and do homework and have the kids bathed and in bed and blah 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 blah. Like you literally don't barely have time for a breath for yourself. I look back, and I'm
Hmm.
sure you must look back too and think, how the hell did I do all that? And how are these women today doing it? Um, but the whole experience overall was very inconvenient, but also very enlightening.
Hmm.
Like for you got hit here. Mine was like I call it the front quarter panel of the car. Think of the
Okay.
car, right? So I actually had caught my head. I remember going like this and going down and it was blood. And then I went into the bathroom to look, and it was just like, that the face, the head bleeds a lot, but it was just basically like a scratch. It
Hmm.
really wasn't any worse than a cat scratch. That's why I didn't think it was anything serious. And
Hmm.
but I I was joking around yesterday with Brooke, and I said, "You're talking to somebody who got a concussion from their own crystal ball." I said, I said it did open my third eye, and I'm telling you, honestly, I swear I thought I was good before.
Hmm.
And I don't mean
I
that
hear you.
I don't mean that with arrogance with this Leo moon. I don't mean that arrogantly, but people that I've read for, they know who I am and I know who I am. And but my God, like I couldn't read for months and months and months, but then when I could, everything was so open. It was so clear. It was literally like in my meditations, it was like I could just reach out and grab it. Like I remember sitting here just looking out the window for a couple hours at a time. Like when I couldn't be on the internet a lot or be on TV, I remember hollering at you for being on Facebook. I would just sit here and I would just look and, mine happened in May. So it was warm and I had this opened up and, the birds and everything. And I would just listen to them sing. And I would think to myself, and I've always been an observer. And like when I got sick years ago, that's when I really learned to really listen like with nature and to really like not just not just visually see the flower, but to embody the sight and the beauty of it and to feel that energy move through my body. So I would sit here for sometimes I wouldn't even realize it that it would be hours at a time, 3 or 4 hours, and didn't even realize how much time had gone by. And then I would question, am I losing my mind? But I was so connected to that bird song was it was like singing a lullaby, like the universe singing a lullaby to me. That's the only way I can describe it. So that really changed that something for me. And I like You've always been this beautiful, kind, and loving, and very generous person of service. I said that in the beginning. And you've always had a softness to you. But if your softness could become any softer or more nurturing, it has.
It did, and it has. Hmm. And the other thing is, I'm more outspoken.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm more, I've embraced. We talked about this the other day. Um, you would say to me, well, you're living the astrology. Or you would say to me, you are an intuitive. And part of me would say, oh, no, 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 you know, and I'm just being me would be what I would say.
Yeah.
And that's real. That's real. But the idea is that I am an intuitive. And since this concussion and slowing down and the whole thing, I, like you, I have clients currently, not a lot because I'm not taking a lot. Okay. But it doesn't take me but a minute sometimes
Oh,
to
yeah.
see, to have the vision and be able to put it into, and I've always been good at that. I mean, people tell me all the time, and I know that's true. I'm always good at putting things into a way that you can hear it, that you can embrace it, that it makes sense to you. But it is coming like that. It's just flowing. And I have I have not been this enthusiastic about my life, about living. Let's put it that way, because I don't know what the I have absolutely zero understanding of what the next phase of my life is going to look like. Zero.
That's
And
good. That's a
and
good
it's perfectly okay. It's
I
perfectly okay because living here now is the most enthusiastic I can be. It's wonderful. I get to do this now.
yeah.
And I know that might sound like, oh my God, Shirley, it's taking you all years to figure that out. And I'm going to tell you this, guys and gals. Um, no, it hasn't taken me all those years to figure it out. And I've practiced it for a number of years. But there's a great big old gumball that I didn't know needed to be dropped down deeper into my soul. And my soul fizzed up when it fell down there and has risen up. And if it's taken me almost 80 years to get here, so what? I'm here. That's the key. That's the key. I don't know how this stuff happens. I just know that it does. And that's what's most important.
We many times we learn through personal experience.
If we're willing.
And, you know, everybody's journey is different.
Hmm.
Everybody processes different. And with a brain injury, you're just happy if you could just process from 1 minute to the next, right? I mean, seriously, and you have to really learn to have, well, we both have a sense of humor.
Absolutely.
Mine's a little more warped than yours, but I used to just laugh at myself. I used to think, God, why did you do that? That is just the stupidest thing you've ever done, Robin. Like, you don't really like you think you laugh, but until you've had that really laugh until you cry and then you laugh again, feel sorry for yourself, and then you're higher than a kite without doing any kind of drugs,
That's
trying
right.
to laugh, you don't really know what laughter is, right? The true depth of the joy that we really get to experience. It just comes out of nowhere and sometimes from the most unexpected, most uncomfortable place
Hmm. Yeah.
in our life.
Yeah.
Like
It's
I'll,
it
I'll be like,
and the thing
answer the door, and he'll be like, "What do you mean answer the door?" I go, answer the door." Nobody's knocked on the door yet. Next thing you know, there's
knock knock on the door. Hey, and the thing is, this is not the end. As
No,
long as we are living, as long as we are breathing, as long as we are in these bodies, there is more to be revealed if we continue on this path. More and more and more.
I think more is opening up to us as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just us opening up more.
No.
I think the universe is also allowing us to see more because we've grown to a higher place of understanding.
Yeah,
And we,
absolutely.
and we don't even understand that higher understanding yet.
No.
And it's just the universe has opened up to us and it's almost like a portal. It's like now you can reach your hand through and you can actually just grab something and pull it back. And then
Mm-hmm.
you look at it and you get to be in awe of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I love, Jesus said we have to become like little children. And what do little children do? I have a picture of my son. He was my firstborn, and he's sitting on the grass, and he has just pulled up a dandelion. And the look on his face is absolute precious, precious. I mean, he's little, and it's a it's that amazement, and that's what I find. The deeper I go, the more I let go of anything, any needs, anything. Everything comes to me as I want it or need it or I desire it. Doesn't always look the way I thought it was going to look, but I know because internally it is right. I feel it internally. Up here says, well, that didn't look the way you thought it was going to look. In here it says, oh my gosh, it's exactly what I wanted. It's exactly the way I wanted it. So we get out of the head, we come into the heart, we come into the gut, the spirit, and we let that speak to the head. And after a while, that is the predominant way that we begin to vision and see the world.
I say this with a lot of my clients, and you probably do too. Stop worrying about this
Hmm.
good thing. What do you feel? Yes, yes, you see it. What do you feel? What emotion moves through your body when you
Hmm.
do that,
Yeah.
right? Because when you can see the beauty in everything, which is sometimes a true test of our humanness,
Hmm.
because not everything we see is pretty.
But there's always a connection.
Exactly. And
That's the thing.
reason, and there's a reason.
Hmm.
Um,
And I bring you back to the court case and to feel compassion for this person wasn't a thought. It didn't think I should feel compassion for him. No, it just was there. And that is so just to look at people and to have that sense of connectedness to a certain aspect of them that they don't even know it exists.
and that is a true example of the unconditional
Mhm.
love
Okay.
that God
Mm,
gives us every moment of
absolutely.
every day.
Absolutely. It may start in our head. It may start with us learning how to look at people differently, how to accept people differently. All of that, good learning, good learning, good learning. Then the book, it has to begin to slide down. It has to come deeper and deeper and deeper. And then we just let it go and it shows up again. It's like that, like I was saying, that spirit gets so you open up a door for it and it brings you everything you're ever going to want to need. It's so beautiful.
Well, I want to thank you for your time today.
I want to thank you for asking me. I've missed all this stuff with you. It's been a fun time. Absolutely.
I have missed you. I have honestly missed you, but I also am happy that you've healed so much and you're continuing to heal.
Mm.
And just please just keep taking care of yourself. And
Yeah,
I'm glad you're back.
I'm glad I'm back too. It's been a beautiful journey and it's not over yet. And I look at it where I am right now as I'm I think the healing, there's a lot of that healing from that has taken place, but also the growth that has come from that. And that growth is not going to stop. Even if the when this gets completely healed, the growth doesn't stop because it's not in the head, it's in the rest of me.
Never stop growing. That's our slogan. We never stop growing.
That's right.
We stop growing, we die.
Well, I guess, or something. I haven't figured out what yet.
That's when we turn into angels.
That's there you go. Got it.
I love you.
I love you. You
Please
stay safe.
continue to get well.
Thank you. And you do the same. I love you very much.
I
And I
hope
appreciate this
so.
opportunity. Mwah.
Mwah. And I want to see you
Namaste.
for your birthday.
Pardon?
I said, and I want to see you for your birthday or
Well,
around your birthday. I'll call you
that
and
would be good.
we'll
Yeah, 80 is
plan.
I was really having a tough time with the 80, moving into the 80 to be the 80. And now it's, again, what you resist
Right.
persists. We let it go and you say, thank
Abundance.
you, God.
8 is abundance. Bring it on.
Bring it on. I'm all for it. All right, darling. I love you. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Bye, honey. Bob just brought lunch.
Thank you, Bob. I'll be right out.
Okay.